The unknown debt system that built Rome and controls America. 1. The architecture of empire through debt. The long arc of imperial history reveals a recurring pattern in which debt functions not merely as a financial instrument, but as a structural mechanism for political authority, territorial expansion, and economic domination. What appears at the surface as simple borrowing conceals a deeper architecture of governance, where states leverage confidence, credit, and currency to project power. So what does that actually mean? It means that the rise and fall of empires can be traced through the condition of their money, the credibility of their promises, and the limits of their ability to mask financial overreach. Footnote: this section explains how debt operates as a foundational tool of imperial expansion and decline. 2. Rome and the birth of monetary legitimacy. The Roman denarius began as a nearly pure silver coin, symbolizing trust and stability across a rapidly expanding republic. As conquests widened, Rome exported not only legions, but its monetary system, integrating distant provinces through taxation, trade, and military provisioning denominated in Roman currency. Over time, however, silver reserves dwindled, and the state quietly debased its coinage. Each reduction in purity weakened public confidence, raising prices, destabilizing markets, and hollowing the empire's economic core. Eventually, the currency that once embodied Roman supremacy became a liability, dragging the empire toward systemic fracture. Footnote: this section analyzes how Rome's debasement of the denarius eroded public trust and accelerated imperial decline. 3. European colonial finance and the expansion of credit. Centuries later, European powers adopted and refined Rome's blueprint. Spain extracted unprecedented volumes of silver from the Americas, flooding world markets and fueling imperial ambition. Yet the empire repeatedly overspent, defaulting on its obligations as military commitments exceeded its bullion flow. Britain, in contrast, perfected a model rooted in global credit issuance. Through charter companies, banking networks, and maritime dominance, the British pound sterling became the world's preferred reserve currency. But even this system, strained by world wars and fiscal exhaustion, revealed the finite limits of imperial credit. Footnote: this section describes how European powers used silver extraction and global credit systems to sustain empire, eventually exceeding their fiscal capacities. 4. The dollar ascendant and the Bretton Woods Order. In the aftermath of global conflict, the United States emerged as the central creditor of the modern world. With unmatched industrial capacity and vast gold reserves, the dollar became the anchor of the Bretton Woods system. Nations pegged their currencies to the dollar, and the dollar was tied to gold, creating a hierarchical monetary order with the United States at its apex. Yet, as military spending, foreign aid, and global commitments expanded, the nation's gold reserves could no longer support the volume of dollars in circulation. The promise of convertibility became untenable. Footnote: this section evaluates how the United States used Bretton Woods to institutionalize global reliance on the dollar. 5. Fiat currency and the illusion of infinite credit. In 1971, the gold window closed, transforming the dollar from a metal-backed claim into a purely fiat instrument supported by trust and geopolitical influence. Without the restraint of gold, the money supply expanded dramatically. The dollar, now the bloodstream of global trade, gained unparalleled reach, strengthened further by the petrodollar framework that required energy markets to transact in U.S. currency. Yet this system embedded the familiar vulnerabilities of past empires: rising inflation, escalating public debt, and growing reliance on external confidence to sustain monetary supremacy. Footnote: this section explains how the shift to fiat currency enabled unchecked credit expansion while increasing systemic fragility. 6. The modern debt superstructure and the global dependency problem. As decades passed, the United States became not only the world's largest creditor, but also its largest debtor. trillions in federal liabilities accumulated, while repeated monetary interventions, quantitative easing, stimulus programs, and liquidity injections further expanded credit. At the same time, other nations began reevaluating their dependence on the dollar. Some diversified reserves, pursued alternative currencies, or explored digital systems. Like earlier empires, the United States faces rising debt, contested monetary authority, and growing doubts about long-term stability. The rhythm of history grows unmistakable. Footnote: this section examines how excessive debt and global diversification challenge U.S. monetary dominance. 7. The universal pattern of imperial decline. Empires rarely fall from external assault alone. More often, decline begins with internal fractures, inflation, political division, administrative inefficiency, and, most decisively, loss of confidence in the currency that binds the system together. Rome experienced it through debased silver, Spain through exhausted bullion, Britain through overextended banking influence. The United States now confronts the same structural test. The question is not whether the cycle exists. It is whether the nation can reform before the financial architecture that empowered its rise becomes the force that accelerates its descent. Footnote: this section identifies the recurring signs of imperial decline centered on currency failure and public mistrust.